Hi everyone, Grant for the Flame Learning channel. When it comes to handling multi-channel media in Flame 2023.2, there have been a few significant improvements to make it easier within the Flame workflow. So in this video, you'll look at the multi-channel clip, the multi-channel rules, changes in action outputs, and finally, how multi-channel media is now handled in the render and write file nodes. Now, multi-channel media typically comes with a main output, like a beauty pass or RGBA image. And it also contains additional image or data channels to either support or rebuild the main image output for a variety of compositing tasks. So when you import a multi-channel media into the batch schematic, multi-channel clips will now initially display their main RGBA or beauty pass output. So without uncollapsing the source clip, you have access to your main image. If you expand the clip with the keyboard shortcut, you can reveal the other channels within the media. All the output color coding is consistent for various channels, so you should be able to identify certain channels quickly the more you use it. Now, what is super cool is you can pick and choose which channels you require from the multi-channel media. Switching to the media's extended menu, you are presented with a list of all the channels and render passes. If necessary, you can hide channels that you don't want in the node, and you can also reorder the channels in the node if you like working in a certain way. Now, Flame recognizes each render pass channel using a set of multi-channel rules. So if you work with any 3D application and you have different naming conventions for your channels, you can adjust the multi-channel rules to fit Flame correctly within your pipeline. So Flame recognizes the specified channel name and it assigns a channel type to that specific channel. You can also assign a channel type to an unrecognized channel, and this will prompt you to update the multi-channel rule. This means that a channel with the same name will now always have the defined channel type, and Flame will present it in the correct manner. If at any point you want to edit or change the assigned channel type, you need to edit the multi-channel rules. Multi-channel rules are not new to Flame. They exist within a text file, allowing you to help Flame understand any incoming multi-channel media. Multi-channel rules have always been a global setting, and they affect all projects and users on your system. With Flame 2023.2, the rules are available within the Flame interface, and you can edit them via the Main Preferences Multi-Channel tab. Now, these panels help identify and define any unknown channels, as well as hide any unwanted channels on import. For example, clicking the eye icon will hide these channels. If you close the preferences and either use the Media Hub or Import node to access the file browser, you can go to your multi-channel clip and expand the channels by double-clicking on the tag. Because of the multi-channel rules, the light gray channels will be visible after the import, and the dark gray channels will be hidden. So when you import the clip, the expanded node will only show the visible channels, and the extended menu will show all the channels, including the hidden ones, which could be toggled on at any time. Returning to the multi-channel preferences, you can hide a channel using the channel rules, or you can hide channels based off a name. You could use a wildcard, and you can hide multiple strings that are separated by a comma. I'll reiterate that hiding channels using the preferences only affects newly imported multi-channel media. When it comes to defining a channel type for a channel, it can be added or amended here, and it's instantaneous. For example, looking at the diffuse passes in this multi-channel clip, you'll notice that only the diffuse pass was defined as a beauty type. If you want all the passes with diffuse in the name to be considered the same type, you would go back to the multi-channel preferences and edit the name field for the beauty type. You can either add in each channel name, separated by a comma, but you can also use a wildcard to make this quick and easy. When you look back at the extended list for the multi-channel clip, all the channels with the diffuse will now be assigned the beauty channel type. Caching multi-channel media is now a granular process whereby you choose which channels to cache based on their visibility. For example, here is the same multi-channel media clip and only a few channels are visible. When you call up the context menu on the clip, you can choose to cache the source media. As the caching goes through the various channels, the channel status will switch to cached. Once complete, the clip's EXR tag will also flag itself as cached. So only the visible channels are cached. If later you enable another channel, the clip flags itself as partially cached, and you would need to cache the source media again. However, this time, Flame will only cache the uncached channel. So this is very efficient. As a final note, if you need to uncache a multi-channel clip, you also do this via the context menu, and all the channels will be flushed. Outputting multi-channels from Action has also been looked at in Flame 2023.2. For example, starting in the Action Output menu, I have assigned a variety of render pass outputs. These render passes belong to a specific render layer called Comp. There is also a second render layer called Extra, which contains lens flares that are generated in Action. If you want to customize the name of a render layer, you can now double-click on the text field and rename it. And if you need to reorder any of your render layers, you can do so with a click of a button. All these changes are immediately reflected in the Action node when looking at the batch schematic. Finally, one of the bigger improvements to the Action output is connecting the output of Action to a render or write file node. Instead of manually setting and connecting everything up, all you need to do is right-click on the Action node and choose to create a multi-channel render. Please note that this works on one render layer at a time. You simply select the render layer in the output list and create your output. This can be useful for separating out certain render passes where necessary. In addition to all of this, you can select your render or write file node and switch to the Channels menu. Here you will see all the channel names that were set for this render layer from Action. If you go back to the Action node and change the name of the render layer, you can go back to the Channels menu and either manually edit each channel name or simply use the input name to update the list. Please note that it is also possible to T-click on a source if you want to propagate the channel naming from a source. So this is a fast way to connect multi-channel outputs and keep the naming convention in sync. When it comes to setting up a multi-channel output, Flame can automate the process of connections as well as give you lots of flexibility with the channel naming. For instance, you would call up the context menu over the source clip and add a multi-channel output. This is the same for render or write file nodes. This removes the stress of manually connecting each channel output. Flame also propagates the names of each channel to both the render and write file node for naming consistency. This can be viewed in the Channels menu of either node. Now let's say you were to work on a channel. For example, let's normalize the depth channel. So locate the depth normalizer node in the batch node bin and insert it into the connection. When it comes to the channel naming, you can leave the naming as is, or you could click Use Input Names. This will adapt the names of any incoming connections. This might not be exactly what you want, so you can manually edit the name of a channel, or you can T-click from a multi-channel source to copy the channel naming. Finally, if you look specifically at the render node, you'll see a sync option which maintains the same name for the RGB and alpha components of each channel. If you want different naming between the RGB and alpha channels, just disable the sync for that channel. Hopefully, these improvements will help you boost your multi-channel workflow with Flame 2023.2. Please subscribe to the Flame Learning channel and click the bell to be notified for future videos. Comments, feedback, and suggestions are always welcome and appreciated. And thanks for watching.